Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today, I guess we're going to talk about straws and studies. Now, last video I mentioned giving up plastic straws. And man, that opened a can of worms. So, before we really get into this, I want to say that if you were in that comment section, understand that most people don't know what I'm about to say. Most people interpret that information the way you guys are interpreting it. But it's not right. And I'm talking about that 100 companies produce 71% of emissions. We'll get to that. But the real problem, the real spark was this. We're going to be defeated by this. The United States of America will be defeated by a plastic straw. We can't figure a way around it because the metal ones are dangerous on impact. The glass ones can break in your mouth. The paper ones, admittedly, are not very good. And, you got silicone. That's what you got. Those are all substitutes for this. Why can't we just make this? Why can't we make that out of something else? Maybe a plant-based straw that's biodegradable. It already exists. Single-use plant-based straws already exist. A company called Plasticless. There's actually other companies that make it. I'm more familiar with them. You wouldn't know whether this was one of theirs or not by looking at it. Normal plastic straws cost $2 for 100. Theirs cost about $4. So they're more expensive, but that's because they're not being widely used. If they were scaled up in use, production would scale up and the price would drop. It's that simple. We are the U.S., so we are not going to be defeated by a straw. We can do a lot of things. When I upload this video, people on the other side of the world are going to see it seconds later. But we can't make this? No, I don't believe that. Not for a second. But there's always the reason. There's always a reason not to get involved. There's always a reason to say, well, let the government handle it. To find some other way than accepting responsibility for it. Because it's scary to accept responsibility for it, admittedly. But we all have responsibility for it. That study that gets quoted so often, 100 companies responsible for 71% of the emissions, that is not what that study says. What that study says is that 71% of emissions can be traced back to 100 companies. So when I fill up my truck at Exxon and I drive down the road, under that study, Exxon gets credit for me driving down the road. So those numbers prove that the individual is actually the person that can make the difference, not the opposite. It's touted as the opposite by a lot of news outlets that have shared interests with companies that don't want change. And anytime somebody comes up with something, electric car, well, then you're just going to burn coal instead of oil. Well, coal needs to go too. Look at that. We're going to get rid of a couple things at once. Well, then that's going to what about coal miner jobs? Well, we're going to get retrained. We're going to get you retrained. You're going to do the renewable stuff now. And it's okay because education's going to be universal. When I say we need a culture shift, a true cultural revolution in this country, I mean it. We need to change the way we look at everything. Profit should not be the motivator. And it's going to start with us. We can't say, oh, the corporations own all these politicians. These big companies, they just buy them off and then say, don't worry, the government's going to fix it. That doesn't even make sense. It's up to you. It's up to me. It doesn't require legislation. It requires individual action. Yeah, there are a lot of people that are economically out of the game, where $2 means a lot, and they can't do it. But that's not everybody. That is not everybody. We cannot base our strategy on the outliers. There's no need to ban straws. We just have to start acting. We have to send letters to McDonald's, whatever the biggest fast food joint is. Get them to switch. And then boom, it happens. Boycott them if you have to. Think it won't work? All companies care about is profit. Look at Chick-fil-A. Look at Chick-fil-A's sudden change. Your voice matters more than you think. Individual action. That's the key here. We can't wait for the government. They're not going to do anything. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.